Welcome to Sparks of History. We are very honored and pleased to have with us today Rabbi Yoshua Zitron. Rabbi Zitron is an acclaimed and highly sought after speaker, teacher, and educator. Rabbi Zitron studied in numerous yeshivot, including the Mir Yeshiva, Torah Or, Shar Yashuv, and Or Yitzchak. Rabbi Zitron has been involved in spreading Jewish learning, Jewish values, and Jewish thought since 2010 across many venues and continents. Rabbi Zitron, thank you for being with us. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you for having me, Rabbi. It's a pleasure to be here. I've heard what you've been doing so far. It's amazing, and I'm proud and happy to be part of it.
Thank you. Thank you. Um, eh, Needless to say, we are flooded today with news. Just totally flooded. Every second there's another news item. And how do we avoid getting lost in this chaos of the news coverage, and yet at the same time know enough that we can maintain a feeling of solidarity with the Jewish people, with Am Yisrael, when we do hear news?
You know, it's very interesting when you look for the past few months since October 7th, the Jewish media, like the amount of visits that these websites get blew up. Like it's unbelievable. People have never been so involved in the news, I feel, in my lifetime since October 7th. And I feel this goes in, there's different brackets of people, different types of people. There are people that are obsessed and I'm not saying one is right and one is wrong, but people are obsessed, and every few minutes they're refreshing. They joined all these chats and all these things so they can get push notifications as soon as something happens. They need to be on top of it. They need to be aware about it. And then you have people that look every so often and they check in it every once in a while. And then you have people that in the beginning it was hot. In the beginning everybody was involved, and especially you talk about people that do not live in Israel, people that live in America, live in Europe, and different areas of the world. They check in, so, seldom they check in and they see, what's going on. And I believe that, like, to this day, though, the bulk majority of people are still continuing to visit these websites, look at the news, see what's going on, because after all, we're all connected. As you know, Am Yisrael is very, very interconnected. As much as there is a little bit of separation that you hear about it, what goes on in Israel, we're still a very, very connected nation. In fact, I don't believe there's one other nation that is connected as we are. You don't see any Iranian collector go to the Iranian mosques and say, I'm collecting for a family in Iran that needs money. You don't hear about Russian people going into the Russian Orthodox Church collecting for people in Mother Russia because they need money. But Jews, you see them, they're all connected, and we all give and we all feel like we're one nation. And hence, it's only natural that if we have brothers and sisters that are suffering, that we want to feel, what's going on. We want to be whatever it is that we can. So as much as people maybe are not as falling into the trap of getting into this wormhole of going into websites and websites and websites as much as it used to be in the beginning of October, by October 7th, I still feel like it's still very, very active. So the avoiding to get into this wormhole, there are a few ideas to take away. Number one is for the people that are consistently obsessed, it's so important. I can't say it's so important because at one point you feel like I need to check, at another point like it's wrong if I don't check. So like, and it's bad if I do check because then I'm neglecting my family, I'm neglecting everything else. So where do we find that balance of like, what am I supposed to do and how much am I supposed to do? And this is why scheduling is very important in human life. Being very, very rigid with your schedule, the more that you're able to do that, the better off that you are, the more that you're able to have that healthy balance that we all need. And this is just an example, the news coverage, just an example of many other factors. We have people that unfortunately get stuck into the media world, where entertainment and TV and movies, and they don't have the ability to block away from it. So it's so important to put yourself into some sort of schedule. Be like, okay, I'll check the news. I'll check what I need to check it, but I'll check it at this and this interval. And to each their own, to make their own, mindset, so they don't get into that that lost of the coverage. Another, I think, a super important factor, and a lot of these things, I have to be very honest, I'm speaking to myself, because I am very involved in the Israel coverage, and as you know, anybody that listens to my classes, especially the past few months, I'm very, very involved with what's going on. I have family there. I have family serving in IDF. I'm very, very close to what's going on. So it gets a little bit taken away when we don't even look anymore at the Jewish websites. And maybe it's just me, but I don't think so. We look at everything. What is the world thinking? What is New York Times says? Even New York Times is just as good as Al Jazeera at this point. But you look at this and you look at that and you're searching everywhere else. What are you going to find different? You're going to find the same news coverage with a different spin, different terminology, different phraseology, different takes on the same concept, but might frustrate you more on this way and might aid you more on the other way. So another recommendation, if I may, is to stick to one or two websites that you get your news from. Preferably, it should be a Jewish website, because obviously you are Jewish and you want to get the right, the right frame, the right mind frame from where the actual factual news are, and stick to that, as well. As to maintain like a part of the what Am Yisrael is going with. And this is the other aspect of it, that you want to feel connected. You want to feel, like this a connection. And you feel like that when you read what's going on. I can't say there's so much to delve into this, because, and I'll tell you, I've had, especially in the beginning, now I don't get this as much, but I had this in the beginning where I had people reach out to me and say, like, they come down with anxiety, like serious anxiety. Some of them needed to be medicated. Some of them, and the anxiety was that I need to do something, right? So if I'm not saying Tehillim right now, then maybe somebody else is going to die. And when you speak like that to a rabbinical figure or even a religious person, be like, what is the right response to say to that? Because at one point, yeah, you should always be davening, but another point, if it's obsessing, if it's crushing your life and you can't do anything else, where is that balance? And this is where we go back to that original point of like the right schedule. Yes, you should continue saying Tehillim. Yes, you should, if you need to look at the news, do what you got to do, but you have to do it in that right balance. And I know it's a little bit of a spin, and then we'll go to the next question. I know I'm a little bit of rambling at this point.
Not at all.
But,
not at all. Not at all. So what should be the tenor, the tone of conversations, whether it's, in the home or with the kids, whether it's in the synagogue, in the shul, at the minyan, whether it's at work, wherever one is, what should be the tone of the conversations, when discussing what objectively seems to be and is an extremely alarming situation, whether it's here in Israel or even in America?
I think as Jews, I think Golda Meir said this, if I'm not mistaken, where she told, I think it was an American president. I don't remember off the top of my head, but she was basically saying, like this, I think it was the president of the United States, like saying, like, I have to deal with so many people over here. You're talking about millions of hundreds of millions of people. And Golda Meir says, yes, you're dealing with hundreds of millions of people, and I'm dealing with a lot significantly less, but you're dealing with, people that are citizens. I'm dealing, let's say back then there was 2 million Jewish people. It says, I'm dealing with 2 million prime ministers. Everybody has their own idea of what is supposed to happen. And I'm not saying it's a wrong thing, but everybody's acting like the prime minister. Everybody has, when we have these conversations, whether it's with our children and whether it's in shul, whether it's with just our colleagues, we're always like, this is what Israel should do. They should wipe them off the planet. They should do this. They shouldn't do that. They shouldn't care what America says. They should care what America says. And everybody has. It's not anymore about just speaking about what's going on. It's about giving advice to no one, basically. It's just like speaking about like what should be done. So while it's therapeutic at times, it could also be detrimental. So I believe the way that the conversation should kind of be guided to, and especially if you're dealing with your children, is like, yeah, you're speaking about what happened, but you have to include Hashem in those conversations. We tend to forget of where this comes from. This is not Bibi, and this is not Yihya Sinwar. This is not this is not the America. It's not Germany. It's only comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when we have these conversations and we forget to include the most important aspect of it, that conversation was wasted. When we have conversations with our children, and the children soak up so much, and your neighbors soak up. People don't realize what people gather from conversations. We have the way that the world works is unfortunately, purely through some sort of manipulation. That's what the media does. That's, the advertising is huge. What's advertising? Advertising, another form of manipulation, and people inject ideas into it. So we are all part of that puzzle. And when we speak about it, if we remember to inject HaKadosh Baruch Hu into the phrase, into the conversation, then all of a sudden we're bringing that into their lives, just like they go and they blame Bibi, and they go and they blame Biden, and they blame Iran. Whatever it is, we tend to forget. So I think the most important aspect, you can't say stop talking about it. People are going to continue talking about it, and to be honest, rightfully so. But we have to remember to inject the original source of everything, the only source that we will get out of this, the reason why we got into this, and that is HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
So what elements of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what elements of Emunah need to be talked, stressed, and discussed today? I mean, you hear horrible things, and that you hear miraculous stories as well. There's such a mumble jumble of things happening. So what's the approach? What should our approach in faith and Emunah be when talking about the events?
So I personally believe the way that you work on Emunah is much easier in an indirect fashion, meaning that if we're dealing with a very difficult situation that the entire Klal Yisrael is facing, and that's been going on for quite a few months, to go head on will work, right? So you say, okay, everything's from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, October 7th was from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it's true, and that's the way, that's a conversation that we need to have. But I don't believe that's the way that you grow Emunah internally. You're doing it superficially it's situational Emunah, meaning that you're doing it based off the situation. The growth of the Emunah, and Emunah is something that you have to consistently work. It doesn't only come into effect when difficult times happen. So I believe the way that you work on Emunah is you work on it in a sort of a roundabout way. Start learning about Emunah, open up a sefer on Emunah. There's so many books in English and Hebrew that speak about Emunah, and it's so easy to read, and it's so easy to learn. It's beautiful. I'm a big fan of Rabbi David Asher on Living Emunah. He comes out, and it's so simple. It's like one lesson a day. It's one lesson a day. You're able to go and you take that information. So what you're doing is you're not building it into a situational aspect, because what happens in Mirz Hashem, today, the war with Gaza is going to be over. It's going to be all taken care of the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants it. Everybody speaks about the day after, right? The day after, what's going to be with Gaza? What about the day after with us? Like, how are we going to relate? Everybody's davening more. Everybody's learning more. There's more achdus. What about the day after for us? When you think about that. So if your Emunah is situational and it's just based on October 7th, and you repeat yourself, it's great and it's amazing and you should continue it. But that's not something that's going to stick to who you are as a person. It's not going to change you. So I believe the way that it should be done is it should be done in the situation, but also it should be done as a consistent learning. Every day you learn a little bit about Emunah, and it's not about just hearing the thoughts. It's not about hearing the concepts, understanding the concept. It's about internalizing the concepts. And once you work on yourself on that, it will seep out in all areas of your life. And of course, in this area, as well.
Okay. And what is the role, Rabbi Zitron, of observant religious Jewry, let's say in North America, vis-a-vis the rest of the Jewish community, without getting into the politics? It's like everything now is being framed. Orthodox Jews support Trump, and the rest of American Jewry hates Trump. Without getting into that whole Trump and politics issue, what should observant Jewry be doing today as it relates to the larger Jewish community?
So there's a lot to uncover in that, and especially just to touch on politics, but not to touch on politics. A lot of Orthodox Jews, when they vote for high leadership. You're talking about presidential, like governing, like things that don't relate to them in the municipalities. They vote, and rightfully so, based on the relation and how it's going to work with Israel. Like that, but that's how you see how amazing Jewish people are, right? Us Jews in America, we're American citizens, and we love where we are. We love Israel more, don't get me wrong, but we're happy where we are. We don't want, but at the same point in time, our hearts are always with Israel. Our hearts is always there, and that's how we go, and that's how we tend to sway to that, to that direction. So when you look at the political mindset of the Jews, it's always in Israel. And you take that mindset and you break it down into other, and I'll tell you something very interesting. There's quite a few organizations that are American organizations that are struggling now. Why are they struggling now? Because all the Jews are sending the money to Israel. And I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's right. I think it's, whatever. Each situation is different. But that's how much you can see and how we're connected. Even the Jews that are outside Israel, even the Jews that are not living in Israel. And you have Jews even that have no family. And of course, we all have family in Israel, distant, but like nothing close that we can call and feel that part of it. And yet we're still just like sending all our resources there, whether it's our prayers, whether it's our learning, whatever it is, we're just sending it, over there. And, I think that is, with all honest, in all honesty, that's the way that it should be. When we daven facing Yerushalayim. We daven facing the Beis Hamikdash. Our source, our connection, we know that Yerushalayim and the Beis Hamikdash, that's a place where heaven and earth connect. Right. And this is where we focus everything. This is where our everything, is. So when we look at how we relate to it, and especially when you say the Orthodox Jews, it's so accurate. What's a scary thought? When you look at the number of Muslims in America versus the number of Jews in America, you would think the Muslim population is in the billions worldwide. The Jewish population is in the millions worldwide. So you would think America would have a lot more Muslims than Jews. But when you look at the numbers, it's not. You're talking about the Muslims in America, last I checked, was about 3 million and change. The Jews in America is about 6 million and change. You look at the amount of noise that the Muslim make versus what the Jews make, it's a little bit embarrassing. But it's not the Muslims. When you look at all these protests, these are not Muslims that are protesting. These are the left, the liberals, who, I don't know how politically correct we are here on this podcast, but they do not have accurate factual information. Far from it. You look at the people that protest. If they would protest in Palestine, they would be thrown off the roof so fast. Then they would be dragged up the roof and thrown again, and the rinse and repeat. They have but yet this is what, and some of them, unfortunately, the left liberal Jews also, they're falling into this mindset of this is what they read in the news, and this is what they believe, and this is how they get just like continued into this downward spiral of not knowing what the right path is. So, which brings us to the main point, and the main point is, when you want to know what is right and what is that you need to do, whether you're in Israel or whether you're out of Israel, there's only one source that you have to look at, and that is the Torah. The whole aspect of moral relativism, where you define morality based on your understanding, is so faulty, and we cannot see it more clearly today. You have the left and how they feel like what's moral and what's not is so wrong. They could say murder is right, and they could go and they say that murder is wrong in this state and in this scenario. And what differentiates? It's based on whatever I decided. This is okay and this is not okay, right? You pick like a buffet. This is good, this is good, this is good, this is not good, and everything else is evil. So how do you define morality? If you look at morality 2,000, 3,000 years ago, sacrificing a child to the gods was considered the most moral thing. Now it's the most barbaric thing. So when we deal with morality based off our understanding, we're going to come into such radical errors. And that is why, if we want to know what the right way to do anything in life, that's where you have to look to the original source of creation, and that is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What does the Torah say? What is right and what is wrong? And that is the path that we need to take. And sometimes people do not have the ability to go and understand it that way. And that's why we look at our rabbis, our leaders of the generation. Listen to what they say. They are a lot smarter than you, guaranteed. I don't care if you're the biggest professor in all the colleges, which now shows us how lack of knowledge that they have, these big professors. But you could see, if you want to know the real right moral thing to do, follow the religious leaders, your local Orthodox leaders.
In 2.5 weeks, we will be sitting down at the Passover Pesach Seder. How is this year different? How should we make this year different? How can we make the Seder experience one that is infused with emunah and lasting for the year based on what's happening currently to the Jewish people?
I think, first of all, I think that's a great point, and we tend to forget it because Pesach is the redemption. Pesach is the time when we were taken out from all our troubles. It's a redemption from everything. It's not only a redemption from being slavery, it's a redemption from like all the troubles and the suffering that we're going through. And if we're able to just for a moment before the Seder realize, like, wait a minute, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God took us out of Mitzrayim, God could take us out of this problem. And there is so much angles that you could go through this with as a nechama. For example, you look at Paro. Paro was such a stubborn, arrogant leader. Like, he brought the entire Egyptian economy to its knees, destroyed it completely. When Egypt was a world power, it went not to being a third world country. It went to the lowest level possible. They were decimated. There was no economy. There was so much death. There was no food. There was a hunger. There was all the bad things. That's what was going on in Egypt. And what was Paro's mindset? He kept on pushing it off. There was one plague after another, one makkah after another makkah. And Paro kept on saying, no, I'm not going to let the Jewish people. And what happened at the end? At the end, HaKadosh Baruch Hu got his way. And that is such an nechama that we look at it. Like, you have Hamas, you have Iran, you have Hezbollah, you have all these angles that are fighting against Israel. And they keep on fighting. Israel's fighting back, and the war keeps on going on. And we think, like, when is this going to end? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to say, like, listen, you can do whatever it is that at the end of the day, the Jewish nation will survive. It's a guarantee. We will survive. You're not going to eradicate us. You're not going to remove us from the land. You're not going to be able to do any. We will continue to be here. Just like we left Mitzrayim, we're going to leave all this situation, and we're going to do it. That's we sing, V'hisha amda lavesenu. It says every generation, they go and they try to destroy us. Every single generation. Can we see it more clearly nowadays than ever before in our lifetimes? I don't think so. You see it all angles, the destruction from all angles from Israel and on all fronts. And not only that, you look at the anti-Semitism. It's from all. You would think after October 7th, the anti-Semitism would go down and be like, okay, we'll have come some compassion. The brutal attacks that happened over there, you think, okay, now it's going to be a lot easier. It went up 400%. 400%. That's an unbelievable number. You can't even begin. Like, wait a minute. What are these people like? You would think the liberal, the left, they want to go and they show compassion, but this is more relativism. They say, no, this is okay and this is not okay. They decide what's accurate and what's not, and what's factual and what's not, and they decide what's the right way to act and what's not the right way to act, and then you just go based off their win. So we see over here that in every generation, we're getting attacked from every single angle. But they're going to go and they're going to go try to destroy us. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to go and is going to save us. I'll tell you a beautiful idea. Whenever you get to this point in the Seder, we stand up, we hold a cup, we sing. What is the song? Imagine we just translate that. Every generation they try to kill us. We're singing about everybody trying to murder us. Like, why is this joyous? Why is this a time when we're so happy and we're singing about it? Because what is the whole aspect of everybody going against us? It's not them. It's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Meaning when somebody does something wrong to you, this is the importance of Emunah, of understanding it. When somebody goes and affects you and hurts you or harms you or steals from you or does something negative against you, we tend to blame that person. And of course, retribution is needed when, as according to the law of the land. But the origin of it wasn't that person. That person was a messenger from God. That person was a messenger getting it. Hamas was a messenger from God. God allowed it to happen. Iran is a messenger from God. God allowed it to happen. Hezbollah and so on and so forth. Islamic Jihad. All these are messengers from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They're all coming from one source. And when we realize that, then we return to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We return to the Torah. We return to all these, to the right aspect. And then we're going to be able to, this is the song that we sing. Just because with all of this stuff, all it does, it turns us to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It turns us to our Father in heaven and realizing the origin and the source of where everything comes from. And we realize that who's going to save us? It's not going to be the IDF. It's not going to be the Air Force. It's not going to be Bibi. It's not going to be Biden. It's not going to be Germany. It's not going to be United. Well, it's definitely not going to be United Nations. That we know for sure, certain. But who's going to save us? Only HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to save us. This is the fundamental understanding that we need to have. Now in the news, it's all going on with the Yeshiva Bachrim and the draft into the army. And I was thinking about it. I don't blame the non-religious for what they're doing. Like, it makes complete sense of what they're going after. I think the fact of where there's a miscommunication is they don't realize how much Torah helps what they're doing out in the field. And I think that's the part that we need to tackle on. Like, they think, okay, you're not doing anything for the country. You're sitting and you're studying. Okay, what's it there? From their mindset, it's as if they're going and reading just a dictionary in some university. What difference does it make to us? And they don't realize that Torah has the power to protect. And the more Torah that we're able to have, the more that we're able to protect. So you think about like what you can do in America, what you could do in Israel. And if you're not in the army and you don't have money and you don't have the ability to go and send, you don't have the ability to connect, you're able to learn, you're able to daven, you're able to do so much because the origin of everything is from up there. It's not from the sides and it's not from down below. It's all from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I think that is the big lesson from Pesach. We sit at the Pesach Seder and we're sitting and we're speaking about that we were once slaves and now we're free. This is where we're holding right now. It says HaKadosh Baruch Hu has the ability to change everything in an instant. Everything can turn around. Everything can turn around. And we have to realize that the source of power that we have to point to is none other than HaKadosh Baruch
Hu. Again, Rabbi Zitron, this has been inspiring, tremendous words of chizuk. And again, thank you so much for being with us today. And as Rabbi Zitron said, the redemption, salvation of the Jewish people and all of mankind should come immediately, quickly and immediately before we blink our eyes. Thank you so much again.
Thank you for having me.